Welcome everybody to this very special Royal Automobile Club talk show in association with Motorsport magazine. I'm Nick Trott, I'm the editor of Motorsport, and today I'm joined by features editor Simon Arron and an online content assistant Jack Phillips. And today we welcome Emerson Fittipaldi, one of the very greats of global motorsport. Emerson became the youngest Formula One World Champion in 1972 in only his second season in F1, and followed that with success 2 years later in 1974. Emerson went IndyCar racing in the USA in the 80s and 90s, winning the championship in 1989 and the Indy 500 race twice. And as recently as 2014, Emerson, you raced in a round of the FIA World Endurance Championship in your home country, I believe. And this year, Emerson has revealed the Fittipaldi EF7, a supercar to take on Ferrari and Porsche. Emerson, it's an absolute pleasure to host you here at the Royal Automobile Club. Thank you for joining us.
Well, Nick, thank you very much. Thank you. It's a fantastic moment for my life. I always see that it doesn't matter how old you are, you always have a new challenge in life. And I always had the dream to build a GT car since I left Brazil. First was to be a Grand Prix driver and then to build a GT car. Took a long time to come to the second dream, but I started 5 years ago testing all the GT racing cars. I tested the Aston Martin, the Lamborghini. I raced the Porsche, 4 races, the Porsche GT3. I tested the Corvette. I raced the Ferrari 458 because I want to absorb, to get all the best ingredients from the cars. I found a need to myself and to people all over the world we call ladies and gentlemen's driver's car. And that's the origin of the project I have now. And it took me, a long time to put on my mind the concept of the car.
And the concept's intriguing, isn't it? Because it has a life in the digital world before it's had a life in the analog world. So can you tell me about the relationship with Gran Turismo and how this came about as well?
Well, it's a long story, but I try to make short. I went to Germany, to Hans-Werner Ausfred, who is the founder of IMG, and now has HWA, who is the race division for Mercedes on DTM, and all the Mercedes GT3 cars are built there. And I had a very long relationship with Hans. I said, I want you to consult to build the car. He said, Emerson, come back a month. And I was surprised, say, I can build the car here. I said, but it's not the Mercedes. Say, I can build the car here, Emerson. Come back, we can make it a project. I said, that's very good news. And he showed me all they have an incredible facility in Stuttgart, next to IMG. Yeah. And then I said, with all the respect I have for the Mercedes, for the German cars, I like Italian design. And he started laughing, say, you're going to spend a lot of money, you should not, we have a good design here. But anyway, I took one of his directors, Stefan Patterschneider, to Pininfarina, and they love it. Pininfarina has so much history, it's 87 years old. Paulo Pininfarina say, I can design your car because Marchionni from Fiat just split from Pininfarina to have their own styling Ferrari studio at Maranello. And then arrived the right time and the right place. The Germans like the idea. And Pininfarina loved to design after the design, the last Ferrari is the first non-Ferrari car they designed. And they have this very good relationship with PlayStation, with Gran Turismo, because the EF7 is really a Gran Turismo car. Yeah. And then when the Japanese saw the car, they say, well, it's going to be in October, PlayStation, and I was very happy with this combination. I call the dream team. For me, it's a dream team together.
Yeah, the German engineering, the Italian styling, and your input as well. So I was looking through some of the statistics of the car, and you mentioned that hopefully it'll be testing later on this year. So we have a V8, a naturally aspirated V8, and is it any coincidence that this car has a naturally aspirated high-revving V8 when so many of your successes in Formula One is with a DFV engine?
Well, you know, all the supercars that I test, most of them are turbo. And the turbo is a fantastic engine. I like the turbo, but the turbo, it can surprise you on a corner because, when the turbo comes in, it really put a lot of power, and then you can start slipping the wheel, and you lose the sideways grip.
Yeah.
And for some gentleman drivers who doesn't know how to drive properly, I think the normal aspirated is much more fun, because a normal aspirated car, you drive the throttle and the steering wheel together. You compensate, through a long corner, you can touch the throttle and drive the car, make the drift. Perfect. And it's much more fun. And normal aspirated, I think, is for me is a dream to have a normal aspirated. I won many races of V8 normal aspirated.
Do you still? I get the impression that you still enjoy performance driving as much now as you did when you first came over to Europe in the late 60s.
Simon, good question. Yes, I enjoy every second driving a car, more as a gentleman driver with the age I have now, and that's the reason why I want to make a very forgiving, very easy car to drive. My next dream is to race the car at 12 hours Sebring or 24 hours of Daytona in America with my two grandchildren.
Wow.
Because Pietro is 21, he's doing very well this year in World Series, he's leading the championship. And I have another grandchild called Enzo, who is racing in Italy for the Ferrari Academy Formula 4. In 2 years he'll be 17. I hope in 2 years homologate the car to race. I told the kids, I say, the 12 hours, I drive half an hour, you guys drive 11 and a half.
But it's not, I mean, you need to do Le Mans, surely. I mean, you've won the Formula One World Championship, you've won the Indy 500. Surely you've got to go for a class win at Le Mans.
No, Le Mans is too expensive, too complicated.
You can just drive for 1 hour.
We need a huge sponsor.
We'll certainly give it the
company.
press.
We look for more simple races, but Sebring and Daytona is a classic in America. Easy, much more easy to go. I mean, Le Mans would be another big dream. Possible too big for me.
You mentioned the gentleman driver side of things as well, and actually there is driver coaching available further down the line. Is this something that you've done before? It must be incredibly brave of you to want to sit next to somebody who's maybe on the gentleman side of the driving experience.
Well, when I drove the McLaren P1 GTR in Spa and then in Austin, Texas, it's a fantastic car, and some of the owners is incredible car, beautiful handling, beautiful performing, but is to a very high driver's ability. And I think when you have a more simple car to drive, you can coach and be more comfortable and more enjoyable, easy to drive. If he's a very good driver, they can drive like the McLaren P1 and have fun. But you have to be really with much more ability to be able to enjoy the car.
I think that's an interesting point, isn't it? Because many modern supercars are trying to impress people with their overall speed and not necessarily about how they make you feel. And for you, it sounds like it's very important that it's how the car makes you feel inside is the key.
One of the challenges I give to Hans Werner was I want the lightest GT car in the world, because coming from Formula background, every time I drove the GT cars, I feel the extra weight. It changed direction, it's not as quick, it's not as forgiving, and that's one of the challenges. I want a very extremely light car. And for sure, racing for Colin Chapman many years. Colin was extremely on the limit of weight on the cars, and on my car we have only maximum. I want to accept 1,000 kilos. I want it to be below 1,000 kilos.
Okay, and that presumably that means a carbon fibre chassis, carbon fibre bodywork, everything carbon fibre. Right. Okay, and a fixed seat as well. That saves weight, doesn't it? Having a fixed seat.
It's fixed seats. We adjust the pedals, the steering wheel. The carbon fiber chassis is extremely safe. I made the side of the carbon fiber chassis more to protect the driver's body if there is like a T-bone crash, someone coming. If someone spin, the other car can hit. We don't have rollover bar. Everything is carbon fiber with all the FIA safety requirements. It's the first full GT car in carbon fiber, like a safety capsule for driver and passenger. Is this innovation, the car?
How much of your time is being taken up by this project at the moment? Because you're an incredibly busy man, you travel around, you're still involved in racing, but how much of your time is this project taking at the moment?
Well, it took me a lot of time since 5 years ago, and I say now is the time to do it. Well, if I don't do now, I'll never do again because of my age, my experience. And the last 2 years I've been a lot to Stuttgart, Torino all the time, away from the family, but the family know that's important. And it took me a lot of time, yes, but I call the dream team to work in Italy and Germany has been fantastic. The people very motivated to do the project. They are giving all they know with a lot of motivation. I think it's very important to have a motivation. Like one day I took a picture, there was 16 guys working around the model at Pininfarina at one time. I mean, they're all looking for every detail, and Paolo Pininfarina is very enthusiastic about the project. That's, I call the dream team, and I have a very good team behind.
That's probably more people than you had working on your Lotus when you started in Formula One, isn't it?
Well, normally 3 mechanics and Colin.
So has this car been designed around some competition rules? Do you have a series in mind, or will you just race it wherever you can, do you think?
Well, I start as a gentleman driver. I was not looking to race, and then Uli Fritz, who is the CEO of HWA, in January come to America. I started the project in Florida, and he said, Emerson, the car is looking so good for racing. You should homologate for race. When he said that, I say, well, why not? But for sure, it was the first idea was not to go to race. It was just like not even club race, but just our own race to take the owners to the racetrack to have fun. But now we are thinking homologate to race the car. Yes,
it's very much in your blood, isn't it, to work on the engineering side as well. I think many people may not be aware that before you even came to Europe, you were actively involved in engineering cars. There was a twin-engine Volkswagen Beetle, is that correct? So tell us about some of...
Nicky knows a lot.
I have to know about that. I have to know about the Beetle. But maybe tell me a little bit about before you came over to Europe, and maybe whether some of that time learning about how the car works and the engineering side has helped you throughout your career.
Well, I always liked the mechanical part. And when I was 16 years old, I started a go-kart factory called Mini that still racing, Nelson Piquet race, Ayrton Senna. Everybody drove Mini go-karts. A factory I started nearly 60 years ago.
Wow.
No, 53 years ago, my calculation. And after that, I built with my brother our own Formula V cars.
Yes.
I won the Brazilian Championship of the go-kart. Then we are selling to clients because my father was a motor race journalist, and we know it's very expensive sport. I was working building karts, and the cars to sell to other drivers and keep us racing. And then we had the idea to build a twin engine Volkswagen. We got two engines, and it was like a flat 8-cylinder. We had a gearbox, a Porsche gearbox. We made a mid-engine, but the outside, it looks like a Beetle. We took all fiberglass body. Was very fast car, but we had a mechanical problem. But was the car only weighed that time 580 kilos.
Wow.
Was extremely light.
Yeah.
Was fun to drive, difficult.
I was going to say, with two engines, was it twice as dangerous as a standard Beetle?
But it was fun, and then we built a prototype with Porsche engine. We call Fittipaldi with 2-liter Porsche engine. We broke the lap record in Interlagos.
Did you?
And then we have our Formula One team, Cooper
Yes.
Sucker.
Yeah.
But they always like. And when I left Brazil, I had all this dream. One day I'm going to build a GT car.
Yeah.
And that's where we are now today.
Well, I think that's a nice actual segue, because before we started here, you told me a wonderful story about flying into the UK in '69, and actually had a similar feeling today. Maybe you can share that with the listeners.
When I flew in '69 to England first time, I remember I was landing Gatwick, and there was a cloudy day, and then there was a gap, there was a hole in the cloud. I saw the grass, and on my mind I said, this is the land of Jim Clark, Graham Hill, Jack Stewart. I mean, so many good drivers, and England always being the heart of racing globally. When you go to, every weekend in England, you have club races. I mean, there's so much enthusiasm about racing. And I had that feeling. And today, when I'm thinking, I'm going to the Royal Automobile Club of England, so much history, so much tradition, so many, car manufacturers famous. I mean, the history, Rolls-Royce, Lotus, Bentley, Aston Martin, Mini Cooper. I mean, names that comes, Jaguar. The Jaguar history is a fantastic history after the war. And they say, my car is there, the Royal Automobile Club. It's a challenge, it's a startup. A small company against monsters,
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, it's difficult to come today with a new car, new manufacturer, with, including McLaren now. McLaren is always they did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
The new McLarens are a fantastic car. And it's a challenge for us. I mean, and it's an honor for me to be here today presenting the EF7 in England, where it's so much tradition, so much history. So I'm very happy, but it'll be a big challenge ahead of us.
Which felt like the bigger challenge, coming over in 1969 to become a professional racing driver and succeeding, or coming over today as a car manufacturer?
It's a very good question, Simon. In 1969 was unknown quantity, because I didn't know how I was going to compare to the European drivers. Only racing Brazil before. It was like, I don't know how would be my level of competition against, the professional drivers. Today, I know it's calculate. I know it will be tough, because all the established GT cars in the world, I mean, they're all fantastic cars. And to challenge is difficult, but today is a known quantity. I know that's going to be tough. I know that's going to be a challenge to build a really good GT car, because the competition is very tough. I know the risk. At that time, it was unknown quantity. It's a very good question.
Did Pietro have that same kind of feeling when he came over a couple of years ago? Because obviously he spent a long time in England himself.
I think Pietro knew that the challenge as a driver, that he knew he could be very good. I think different from when I came. There was no other Brazilian driver, no other. We didn't know how to compare to other people. Pietro now knows. But Pietro's biggest challenge for him is the pressure of the name. It's tough on them because when we finish second, third, the people say only finish second, third. But he's doing very well. I'm very happy. He's taking the pressure. I think, Damon Hill did a fantastic job. It's always very difficult when you heritage historical name to go into race for the new generation. It's a tremendous pressure. Pietro always, even I'm not watching, before the race I call him, before qualifying, before practice, anywhere in the world, because I try to keep up, to take the pressure. And my other grandchild, Enzo, who is racing for Prema Formula 4, has another tremendous pressure for the brother and for me. It's always difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, the spotlight, of course, wasn't on you in '69, although I did find in our archive the very first time that you were mentioned in Motorsport magazine. And if you don't mind, I'll read a short extract from here.
I never read.
And I can promise you it's positive. So here we go. The most important championship from a purist point of view is the National Formula 3 Series. Then it goes on to say, a new name has suddenly appeared on the Formula 3 horizon. A 22-year-old South American named Emerson Fittipaldi arrived in England from his native Brazil early in the season, acquired a Formula Ford car and instantly got himself noticed for some very fast driving indeed. And then it goes on to say, and there was a race here, the Gold Leaf cars, and there was you needed to pick up 2 championship points to win the title and a £100 prize, which I'm sure was made a big difference. But it basically goes on to say that the Brazilian naturally generated a good deal of excitement among Fittipaldi's extensive entourage of fellow countrymen who are apparently reporting back to South America his every move, relayed via the newspapers to an avid public, just as Fangio's activities were from the beginning of his European career. So that's absolutely, I didn't make that up. That's the report from 1969. But were you aware of how your success was getting back to Brazil and the impact that your successes was having back at home? Were you aware of that at the time?
I was, and the one thing that was amazing when I look at the 59 here, that's fantastic to have here together with my new car. I look at the past and the future. Yep. And not many people know, but Ralph Furman was my mechanic. And it was his first job as a mechanic. And he's the son, the brother-in-law of Jim Russell. And I remember when Jim Russell come to me and said, well, I have my brother-in-law. He never worked in racing, but he can help you as a mechanic. For sure, he did a very good job. And driving the Lotus was, again, was new. Was exactly this, the Lotus that's here today is the one that launched me as the international image, because everybody at that time watched the Formula 3 Championship in England. The British Formula 3 Championship was important. Then all the Brazilian media start saying, well, Emerson's leading, Emerson's winning, can win. I think the last race was Brands Hatch, and it was incredible coverage for the Brazilian media, because it was the first time a Brazilian driver was out of Brazil winning races on important championship. And it was fantastic to be able. And I spent, many trips, many hotels, Truxton, Mallory Park, everywhere in England, with Ralph Furman, myself and Ralph.
Yeah. Was your father giving you good coverage in Brazil?
Yes, yes. And my father had a radio program and a TV program. But, my father was very discreet, that he didn't want to talk too much, because being the father, I always say, the father of a driver and the mother of a miss is a problem. But my father was very good. He was always behind. The only time he lost his balance was when I won my first World Championship in Monza. He was broadcasting live. Can you imagine? You see the son winning the World Championship, first time for Brazil. He was very emotional. And I still have the record from his the last 5 laps in Monza. Is incredible to hear. And he was over-revving. You for sure.
Imagine. I'm going to move on to some reader questions. We've had so many readers' questions. One of the best responses we've ever had, and actually, Lotus comes up inevitably. And the first question from Brian Gehrig: how was your relationship with Chapman and also with Peterson? So, if you can tell us a little bit about your relationship with those two.
Well, first, I told on the lunch today. I remember when I won the British Formula 3 Championship. First year I was in England. Colin called me to have a meeting, and I look. Colin was sitting on his desk. I was on the chair, and I'm looking, and I'm thinking, this is Colin Chapman. I'm talking to Colin Chapman. My legs start shaking. I was so nervous. And he said, Emerson, I want you to sign next year to drive Formula One. I was only drove Formula 4, Formula 3. And was my intuition, my instinct was controversial, shock. I say, if I accept and I cannot deliver, it will be a problem. Or I take a risk to burn my career. Yeah. And then I say, first I say, Mr. Chapman, I'm not ready for Formula One. I would like to have Formula 2 before. And I was expecting his answer. And then he said, okay, Emerson, you run half season next year, Formula 2, and we can start the British Grand Prix. Good. That was my first meeting with Colin. I never, and when, Jim Russell was in Snetterton, driving Lotus, everybody was telling Colin, what was happening. And then Colin wanted me to drive. And then the same month, Frank Williams he was learning how to fly. He flew to Norwich. I was living in a small house in Norwich. And Frank called me, arranged a meeting, and said, Emerson, I want you to sign for me with Pierce Courage. Yes, and I have both. Yeah. And then he took me to De Tomaso, Italy, who was making the Tommaso Williams. I spent a day in Italy. It was a very nice project, everything nice. But I told the same Frank. I said, Frank, thanks, but I'm not ready. And in 1970, I was always very good friend of Ronnie Peters. 1973, we raced against Formula 3, Formula 2, and then Formula 1. 1973, he joined the team. And he's one of my best friends in Formula 1. And he had when he had his crash in 78 in Monza, was, to me, to my family, was a disaster. And by coincidence, August 12, in Stockholm, is the avant-premiere of Ronnie's film. I'm going there, and I'm big part of Ronnie's life, and Nina Peterson, Ronnie's daughter, because she was so small, she never knew the father well. And when I participated in the film, she kept asking, how was my father? Emerson, tell me. I had so much fun to participate. It'd be a good production from Sweden. It's a good, it'd be similar to Rush, but made by the Swedish team. I'm looking forward to see the film. They have a fantastic coverage about Ronnie's life, and I'll be there in Stockholm. It'll be fun.
Sounds incredible.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Was the rivalry you had on track with Ronnie, can that be compared with the rivalry you had with Jackie the year before? How did they compare as competitors?
To me, if you ask who was your worst enemy, most difficult driver on the racetrack, for sure Jack Stewart. I mean, he was a fantastic driver.
Yeah.
I would say Jack Stewart to carry the car on his back if the car would not perform. I mean, he's always on the limit, fantastic driver. Ronnie was a friend, a very aggressive driver, incredible style of driving. I was having fun to have Ron on the team. We were very open for the setup, for everything. And I really enjoy working with Ronnie, but he was a fantastic driver. Ronnie Peterson was world champion material.
Sure.
And it didn't happen, but he had the capacity. You know, on the English history, it's like Stirling Moss.
Yeah.
You know, Stirling Moss should be world champion, but it didn't happen. Ronnie should be world champion too.
Sure. I must credit James Vickers for the previous question. Apologies there. This is from Jackal. I've read previously that you felt the Lotus 72 was the best car you'd ever driven. Is that so? And what aspects of the Lotus 72 made it your favourite?
It's 100% correct. And the Lotus 72 was a car that I could talk to him. He talked to me. He was part of my body, and I was part of the 72. I drove for 4 seasons. We had a very good 1970 when I first raced. 71 was a very difficult year because when come the slick tires, increased the grip, and we started having what I call suspension deflection. And then we lost some. 71 was a very difficult year for us, but at the end of the season, we got the car working again. And 72 was fantastic. I mean, it was the best car I ever drove. From all the cars I drove on my career, if you ask, it's still, yes, 72 was the best car.
And I believe recently, have you driven the 72 a few times and does it feel like you're putting on a glove? Does it still feel like that when you?
They took the 72, I think 3 or 4 years ago to Bahrain before the race, and it was the first time. It was a safe track with a lot of runoff area that I could drive fast. And I told Clive, I said, Clive, can I drive fast? He said, yes. And then I really was driving fast. I had to learn the track because I never raced there before. But I was enjoying, it was like my memory was going back, you know, the smell, the pedal, the steering wheel, everything I was back again the proper way. And they stopped the demonstration, and what happened, I didn't stop. Oh. I did another 2 laps. They had to red flag me.
Is that the only time you've been red flagged or black flagged?
Because when you drive like in Goodwood, you have the feeling to be back in the cockpit, but you don't have the feeling cornering, braking, feeling how the car was. It was the only time since I drove was in Bahrain a few years ago, I think 3 years ago. It was a lot of fun.
Wonderful.
Just you mentioned 1971. I mean, and you during that season, as well as driving the 72, you also raced the turbine car. Well, I mean, you drove it in 2, I think, Brands Hatch and Silverstone, the non-championship races, and then Monza in the Italian Grand Prix. How did you feel about that project? I know it didn't last for very long, but I mean, what were your feelings about it?
I think it was a big challenge to Colin to make a turbine Grand Prix car. I told today to Clive Chapman on lunch, the first time I watched the car running was John Miles at Hassel. They had the local racetrack, small racetrack, using the runway for airplane runway. After 3 laps, Joe Miles braked at the end of the straight. I was with Colin Chapman watch. He doesn't stop, goes through the fence into the cattle field. He comes back white, no brakes. And we had to order from Lockheed huge pads, huge brake disc that didn't exist at that time, because you have to stop the car and the turbine. The turbine is always, when you back off, still the turbine is pushing the car forward. And then I had the alarm on the dashboard, a red light with sensors on the pad. If the red light goes on, come in. no brake pads, and it was a big challenge. To all the cars that I race, that was the highest risk for a driver to drive the turbine on the road circuit, the Grand Prix track.
And you raced it at Monza, the fastest track of them all.
Yes. And the car had a huge fuel tank because that time you didn't stop.
Yeah.
The car was very heavy in the beginning of the race, and through the chicanes, through the Ascari corners, was quite slow because they have fuel. But knowing Colin Chapman, he was a genius. I knew if you continue, that car would take over Grand Prix racing. It's just a question of time, engineering, develop the car, and then by the end of the year, because we race after Monza, we race in Hockenheim on a Formula 5000 race, and I was extremely fast in Hockenheim. It was the second really challenge to us, and then I think FIA looked and told Colin, no turbine cars in Formula One. But there was, Colin was incredible. He was a genius. He would found a solution to make the car very fast. Was getting there.
There was. Did you race the car at Brands Hatch as well? Is that right? 71, I think. Yeah. My father was there. He interviewed you at 71 at Brands Hatch. Absolutely. So very, very circular. And what he said, it drew a crowd because it was quiet. Usually a racing car draws a crowd because it's noisy. But he said he's never seen anything like it. You going into paddock with this thing just whistling. But he sensed that there would be brake issues with the cars.
Well, Brands Hatch, there's another story. I was the end of the straight. I braked the end of the straight. The rear wishbone broke. The rear wheel turned. I made this 360. Didn't hit anything. I stayed on the asphalt. And the rear wheel was off. I went back to the pit very slow, dragging the rear wheel. But the car was unknown quantity. We didn't know how much G would have the suspension. I mean, that's why I say it was a very dangerous car, but was incredible. You could hear the engine, the tire noise on the corners instead of
the engine,
like a road car. You could hear going around the corner. It was fantastic.
Let's skip forward to 1973. We have a question here from Simon Wilson. I attended the 1973 Canadian Grand Prix with my dad and 3 brothers. I was 11 at the time. My brothers and I still have a laugh about the chaos after the pace car came out in front of Howden Ganley. I'd love to hear your memories. And do you believe you were the rightful winner? Okay, thanks, Simon.
Peter was the team manager from Lotus, and at that time we didn't have electronic score. It was all, visually watching and making, and when the pace car come out of Hockenheim, we won the race. They took me to the podium. They give me the trophy. They start commemorating. Then they say, no, Emerson won out of the podium. I said, come on. That's a good question. It happened. Yeah. And it was a joke because I went to the podium and then they took me out. And Peter War still convinced that I won the Grand Prix. But the time score was against us. It was a confusion with the pace car. And, it's very disappointing for a driver to commemorate, to go first place at the podium, receive the trophy, then you have to get it back. It's unfair.
But I think that race reflects more than any, perhaps, how the modern world has changed, because now everything, all the information is instant. I was 12 years old at the time, and I was desperately trying to find out who'd won the Canadian Grand Prix. It wasn't in any of the British papers because of the time difference and there were all the arguments. Nothing was in the British papers, and by Tuesday, no one cared. And I had to wait till Autosport and Motoring News came out on Thursday to actually find out who won the race. It took 5 days to discover that. It's just it was a completely different world.
The news today, everything's so fast, so much more quicker than it used to be. It's big change. My son He's 10. He's racing go-kart. He's learning, like telemetry. He's the best lap, goes on the laptop, and you can see where he's losing, where how much he's gaining or losing and braking to his teammates, to the other drivers. It's amazing. I mean, they are learning now 6, 7, 8 years old, things that we never dreamed to have at that time. I mean, so much, everything mechanical, everything, even team manager to the driver was, Colin Chapman working with me on the setup of the car. There was no any electronic information. And I remember many times the car was not correct. And then I went to dinner Saturday night with Colin. And Colin kept asking, tell me, how was turn 1, turn 2, turn 3? And then Colin used to put the 2 fingers here and listen like this, concentrate. I know what to do after, And he went back to the garage. Next day was a new car. I mean, he was fantastic. His intuition to set up the car. And today everything's electronic.
I can't believe you didn't have telemetry on your Formula Ford Merlin. It's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. But I mean, you mentioned your youngest son who's karting. I believe you and he are travelling around together in a motorhome going to. I mean, that must be like starting all over again, isn't it?
It's incredible. These kids now, you go, for me, it's going back to go-kart, yes, start from zero again. Different go-kart from my timing. Extremely competitive. Many talent. I mean, these kids, my son raced in São Paulo yesterday. We just got the plane. He's here today. But you see these kids, 10, 11, 9, dicing, wheel-to-wheel, sliding, four-wheel drift, overtaking, braking, touching the other. It's amazing how younger they are now and learning so fast what I was learning when I was 17, 18 years old. They are learning 10 years younger than we when we started in the 70s, on the 60s race. It's amazing the difference. And there's so much talent to these kids, the way they learn. I mean, it's amazing. And they are going, yesterday he was hitting, in miles, 65 miles, 110, 120 kilometers per hour. 7 years, 8 years, 10 years old kids. It's amazing how changed racing.
Yeah. Do you feel, looking back on the late 70s, do you feel you were a better driver in the Coppice car that you drove in the late 70s than you were when you were in a car that was front running at the beginning of the 70s? How did your driving change, if at all?
I always say in life, I think any sport, every new experience you are learning, you're getting better. And in motor race, every kilometer, every mile that you do on the racetrack, you are learning. As long as you have the motivation to give the 100% of yourself, you always can improve. And I think through experience, you get better. Even if the age is working against you, you have a balance. And the athlete has to know when the curves start going down. But I had some of my best races. I didn't win. I was running third, fourth, and I'm sure a lot of drivers have the same experience I have. People say, "Oh, he won the race. It was a fantastic race," but possible he had a much better race and he finished third, second, fourth than winning.
You talk about age working against you as you get older, but you retired from Formula One, stayed away from racing for a couple of years. Then you did the sports car race in Miami, and next thing you've got a brand new career. I mean, what? You'd
said
retired.
You like to challenge.
I mean, what was it that sort of? What was it that persuaded you to stop initially, and what was it that persuaded you? Actually, that was a bad idea. I'm going to start again.
In '98, if you remember, was the full ground effect cars, with the skirt down, and the full ground effect cars. To me, was beyond the driver's limit. Any fast corner, to try to explain what happened, if you take turning to the corner 1 mile, 2 miles, or 3 miles or in kilometers faster, the result of the downforce would be much more big, would accept, but we didn't know where was the limit. And when you lose it, or if the skirt on the curb stop and you lose the low pressure under the car, you crash. And I was not enjoying anymore. We had our best car with half boss weight, and Adrian knew it. It was first job from Adrian on a Formula One car. And we lost the sponsorship in Brazil. I was very disappointed because we had the best. A Formula One team is a good team as long as you have good people. The people makes the team. It's not the team that's going. And we had Peter War as a team manager, Keck Rosberg as my teammate, Harv Poswaite, who was a fantastic engineer, design. And then Adrian knew it as a junior engineer, but already come with some good aerodynamic ideas. The car was an incredible car. But I lost motivation after 98. I had some invitation to continue Formula One. I went back to Brazil, and then Ralph Sanchez, who organized the Miami Grand Prix, said, Emerson, I want to drive the Spirit of Miami, and I always want to race again. And I went there, and then Monday after the race, American-Cuban guy, Pepe Romero, say, I have a very Cuban accent, say, Emerson, I have a Indy team, I want you to drive for me in Indianapolis. And going back to Colin, when he won with Jim Clark, I was a teenager in Brazil. It was a very big news. Team Lotus go to Indianapolis, win. And on the mid-50s, 60s, I used to have to watch documentary films about Indianapolis from Bardal, Bilvukovic. There was a lot of big names just before AJ Foyt. And I watched Indianapolis too when I was a teenager. Actually, when I was still less than 10 years old. And then I keep asking Colin, how was the experience to race Indianapolis, winning with Jim? And to me, it's always integrate, because Colin, like, some people hate, like the drivers. Some drivers hate Indianapolis, some drivers love it. There's no halfway, or you love or you hate Indianapolis. And York and Rin did hate Indianapolis. But always, when I had the opportunity in dinners, I keep asking Colin, how was to race Indianapolis? Bobby was in Indianapolis, Bobby Dennis. He was here today too. He was with Jim Clark there. And then on the back of my mind, I said, I always want to race Indianapolis. And I had the first experience. And then I said, I'm going to do like 3 classic races per year from Indy. And then it turned out I did 13 seasons, full seasons.
Am I right? If my notes are correct, 74, you tested a McLaren Offenhauser? Is that right? That's obviously a good decade before your Indy career really kicked off. But why did the McLaren Offenhauser tests? My notes say that you enjoyed driving the car, but it was fragile.
Well, 1974, I just won the World Championship at Watkins Glen. They flew me to Indianapolis. I drove the Johnny Rutherford's winning McLaren of that year. I had a very good coaching from AJ Foyt when I arrived in Indianapolis first time. It was very interesting. I remember I said what I have to do and what I should not do. And then on the back of my mind, coming from where I come, I never could do it. Say, oh, Emerson, if you lose the back end, turn the steering wheel to the inside, the car spin to the inside, don't hit the wall. But how,
the reflexes,
the
opposite.
I always correct, but anyway, that's one of his number one advice to me. And I enjoyed the McLaren. It was a beautiful balanced car. I was getting the speed quite quick. Very smooth driving. Next year they want to race, sponsored by Texaco, would be the Texaco Star race in Indianapolis. but I refused because if you remember that year, we were already going 215, 260 miles per hour average. And then when they hit the wall, just disintegrate. The monocoque was 3 millimeters aluminum. And I said, no, I'm not racing the one. Now, 10 years later, was already carbon fiber.
Yeah.
That actually saved my life in
Yes.
Indianapolis,
Yeah.
in Michigan Speedway.
Okay. We're
It's
going
a lot of history.
Do you know, we're going to jump around now
Good
because we have
questions.
so many questions, and you're giving some fabulous answers as well. So we mentioned earlier on that there were some opportunities in F1 in the early 80s, and Oscar Matzerath has mentioned that maybe there was an opportunity with Alfa Romeo, and another one of our readers. Oh no, hang on, same guy, Oscar. Oh, he's very well informed, Oscar. In '84, you drove a Spirit Heart. What are your memories of the Spirit? Did it help you choose to pursue your career in kart? And did you ever come close to driving for Alfa Romeo in Formula One?
Well, it was very good question. The day I drove the Spirit was the day that Ayrton drove the Toleman in Rio. I was with Ayrton. We were having dinner together. It was my back to Formula One and his first Formula One experience. It was very interesting because the Spirit was a very good car to drive. It had a Hart engine. Was powerful, but the team didn't have, I think, the sources to do a proper season, and I back off. Was already carbon fiber starting car that was much safer, and I was with Ayrton the same day when he tested the Toleman in Rio de Janeiro at the racetrack. And Alfa Romeo made the offer for me to drive, but I didn't want to go back to Formula One that time, no.
No, okay. Okay, right. We have so many questions here. This is quite something. Here we go.
I have the time.
Are you sure?
Rushing.
Okay, we don't want to...
Don't worry.
I'm conscious
It's
that you
fun.
flew in this morning, so
No.
more coffee, I think.
I have plenty of time.
So, Matt in South Korea. Here we go. International readership we have. When you look back on your career, be it F1 or kart, which drivers stand out as A, your toughest competitors, and B, talents that were never in the right place at the right time?
Well, I was so lucky that I raced against 3 generations. The one generation before mine, that was, like Graham Hill. Jack was nearly 1 generation before mine. Jack Brabham. I mean, they're fantastic drivers. From that generation, the toughest was Jack Stewart, for sure. Then on my generation, there was so many good drivers. I mean, Niki Lauda, Carlos Reutemann, Nigel Start on my generation just before I finished. There was, James Hunt Start too. Was a lot of talent.
All the way through to Jacques Villeneuve as well.
Yes, Gio Villeneuve.
Yeah, Gio and Jacques, yeah.
Mario Andretti. And then I race against the Sun.
Yes.
In America, I race against Jacques Villeneuve. I race against Michael Andretti. Yes. The Answer family, the Sun. Yeah. It's difficult to see. There's so much talent. I would say on my time in Formula One, the one that really comes out to me because what happened to him is Nicky. Because, when he had the crash in Nürburgring, this is the toughest part of Formula One. I was in the hospital next to Nick's room. He was chance of dying. He was because he didn't have any oxygen on the blood because he burned the lungs. And then I think it was Daniele Audetto, the team manager from Ferrari, called me and said, "Emerson, come here. There's someone on the phone who wants to talk to you." I went there and it was Enzo Ferrari. "Emerson, do you want to drive for me now?" I mean, Nicky was there same day. and was a shock to me. And that's how tough is Formula One. And then why I'm telling the story, because we never expect Nick to come back in Monza. 2.5 months after he had the face all burned and had the problem putting the helmet. To me, he was incredible driver, Niki Lauda. From my era, not saying that there's no other talents, a lot of good talents, but his spirit to go back there, Monza, with all the pressure from Ferrari, after being burned the way he was burned, and then perform again, and after that winning the World Championship again. Amazing. To me, as an athlete, I have a lot of admiration for Nicky.
Yeah.
What his experience and go back and win.
Incredible. You mentioned actually earlier on with Ayrton Senna. This is from Peter Bukovan. I hope I've got that right. What kind of setup did Ayrton Senna like on his cars? What did you tell during 1994 about how he was setting up his cars? And how would you describe his driving style? That's 3 questions. He's not allowed 3, but that's. I think.
Ayrton always from go-karting. He was always outstanding. He was always driving very aggressive, taking a lot of risk. He was always driving what I say near over the limit, and he was demanding on himself a lot. I knew Ayrton since started racing go-kart, and we were very good friends for many, many years. I invited him to drive in India with me. He drove my car. But he was always incredible, asking much from himself. Every lap he wanted to improve, He was an incredible driver. And Ayrton was, second part of the question, if I told him some setup, when they have the Grand Prix, the Detroit Grand Prix, I was there when Ayrton won the race. And then was Indy race. I called Ayrton. I say, Ayrton, how was the setup you used? This is true. He said, Emerson, because of the 90-degree corners, put a lot of stiff roll bar. You brake already, you have the back end helping to turn. And I won the race.
Did he share his prize money?
Peter, right?
Yeah, that was from Peter. Yeah, Peter.
Ayrton told me the setup, not me. For Detroit.
Okay, Tony Chan asks, as I recall, you were pretty good in the rain. Do you believe that the best drivers in the rain are also the best drivers in general?
Well, I think to drive on the rain, you have to have a very good feeling. And driving on the rain is like driving slow motion, because everything happens with less grip. The movements, everything in the car is, I don't say if sluggish, is that the right expression? That things it's like a film in slow motion driving the wet. We think it's the other way, but when you drive on the wet, I think Ayrton was very fast on the wet always. I had many wins on the wet, but the drivers who drive on the wet has a good feeling between the car, the track, the body, what feel the limit. Yes, a very talented driver normally should be very fast on the wet. Yes.
Did you were you good in the wet before you came to England, or was it something you? Given the weather,
it does rain in Brazil.
It does,
quite
but
hard.
it's easier to. You can rely on the rain in England.
Good question, because we learn in England racing, Formula 4, Formula 3, any racing here. There's always a good chance of be drizzling and wet, different conditions. It's true. If you get the history of any British driver, always when rain is always running fast, yes, compared to the other countries.
Let's bring ourselves.
But you have proper rain in Brazil, though, don't you? I mean, the rain in Brazil is much higher quality than British rain.
Brazil is thunderstorm, and actually, in 1974, the British Grand Prix. It was my last Grand Prix win. It was sunshine, and then I see a black cloud coming towards the track, And I had experience in Brazil in racing, that sometimes when the black cloud like that comes, is a lot of water. And I look, it's going to rain. I think I was running second in the race. Silverstone was very fast at that time. And then the cloud got closer. I went by the end of the straight, I filled my visor. Next lap I come in, I was first to come in. And Teddy Mayer, the team manager for McLaren, put the wets. I went out, big rain, 12 cars crashed. Yeah. I don't know if you remember
I do remember very well, yes. Yeah.
And then I was so lucky. And then I come out of the pit, I'm going flat out on the straight, very bad visibility. It was a big rainstorm, it was a thunderstorm.
Yeah.
And then I saw the back of a car just grow. He was going first gear with slicks, trying to go back to the pit. I missed by that much. And was Mario Andretti driving the Viceroy Grand Prix car, the American team. I'm sure Mario never saw who went by. And when I was racing Indy, I say, Mario, do you remember Silverstone 74, a car that nearly hit you and went like crazy? I was in top speed, you're in first gear. It was me.
Incredible. Right, Formula One today. Inevitably, there are some questions around the current state of Formula One. Obviously, we had a wonderful race yesterday in Baku. Andrew Raebus asks, what is wrong with modern F1? What should F1 change to become interesting and excited? After yesterday, I think we had a good race. But what's your general assessment of Formula One today?
Well, my general view of Formula One, I think still the cars, they have too much downforce. And when a driver is challenged, the guy ahead, if he's very close, you start losing grip in the front because the extra downforce. You start graining the tire. And then if you are able to pass on the 2-3 laps, yes, still the tires. But if you stay a little longer, you lose the front grip, and then you have to back off. I think you should take some downforce from the front. I think the public should be much more communicate to the drivers. The drivers should be more open, face, talk to the public. I don't know how, but be easy for the public to
more
have
like
access.
More like CART or IndyCar,
yes,
more like in America,
yes.
yeah.
And because it doesn't matter, but always the public, like any sport, they like to see the driver's reaction, the motion, the athlete they want to see. I think we are missing a little bit that in Formula One. The cars this year, I think they are beautiful looking. They are more muscle, the big tires. I like that. They are really nice car. I think we need to, possible to make a shorter race. My opinion, 2 hours too long. The new generation with the gaming, with everything, they want everything to happen much faster.
Yeah.
You should make a shorter race, in my opinion, or 2 races on the weekend.
Yeah.
Possible one Saturday, one Sunday, or 2 races Sunday, I don't know, but should be more sprint race.
Yeah.
To be more challenged, more dynamic.
Yeah.
I think Formula One has a fantastic future. Formula One is always Formula One. It's never going to change.
Sure.
But I think we need to make it more modern to the new generation.
Yeah.
I took my son last year. I was a steward at the German Grand Prix in Hockenheim, and between Friday to Sunday, he wanted to see all the drivers. His dream was to meet Lewis Hamilton, to Nico Rosberg, to be there. With me, I had all the ticket, the pass to go. He only saw 3 drivers the whole weekend walking the paddock that he could take a picture. I think we were missing that. And he was disappointed. Leaving Hockenheim, he's 10 years old, he wants to see the drivers, he wants to take a picture. Oh, Daddy, can we see more? Can I meet more drivers? I think we're missing that.
I think that's something WEC, which you raced in, it's got that correct. And I guess you probably felt the same when you were probably getting mobbed by fans in Brazil a couple of years ago. So F1 should follow that same model.
They should do it, yes, for the future, for sure.
I mean, it's lovely. I mean, you're talking about being on the grid at Daytona in a couple of years, but I love the way in the Daytona 24 hours, the whole public are allowed on the grid. I mean, if you're actually trying to work and take pictures, you can't because you can't move. But the access is fantastic.
I think they exaggerate. I was there watching a few times. Actually, I watched when Paul Newman race when he was 82 years old. I'm not going to race 82 years old.
I was going to say, you've got another 10 years. You've got another 10 years in you, yeah?
12 years. But I was there. It was amazing, you know. But that's the interaction between public, the race cars, the drivers. I think is very important. Very important. How to do that must create a new system. Yes, I like that. You are right. So this interaction has to happen for the sport.
We saw it at Le Mans as well. The drivers' parade has now become part of the drama and excitement of the weekend. We have a Le Mans question from Mikel Hromadka. I'm sure they've given me really difficult names because this is my first one. Emerson, did you ever consider Le Mans? What do you think about that race?
Well, there's another question. That's in 1965. The best Brazilian driver that was called Christian Heinz, that's why my nephew is called Christian, went to Indianapolis to race with Mauro Bianchi, who is the uncle grandfather of Bianchi, on the Alpine. And we all the Brazilian, racing world was watching. First time a Brazilian driver go to racing Le Mans with chance of winning. And then just before midnight, at the end of Mulsanne Strait, he hit a oil patch and crashed the Alpine. The car blew on fires and he was killed. And I was one of his biggest fans, and to me it was a shock. And then always back of my mind, well, I'm going to race in Le Mans. It's too dangerous. It's too dangerous, Le Mans. When they had before the chicane, it's still dangerous because of the rain, the night, different speeds of the cars. I had one chance in 1988, I think. Nirpash, Jochen Nirpash was the team manager for Mercedes. Want to do like Indy team. I was going to be myself, Mario, and Michael Andretti. And I mentally said, I'm going to do the dream to race Le Mans. And then was exactly the same weekend as Portland. It was June, always conflicting with Portland. It was 90, because I was already driving for Roger. I was with Penske, but I accept the race would be with the Nirpash Mercedes. But it didn't happen. Now it's too late.
It didn't happen.
I'm not going to race Le Mans.
Go on.
I don't think Simon believes you. I think Simon's...
I need to encourage you.
Jan Lammers was there.
Jan Lammers was there, yes, yeah, that's true.
Lammers raced this year.
Yeah,
yes.
So never too late.
Never too late. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. It's been great to have you here. Thank you for your honesty in your answers, and actually thanks for telling us about your Fittipaldi motors as well and the EF7. It's going to be a fascinating project over the next few years, and we look forward to it. Thanks everyone for listening. We look forward to catching up with you next time with another Royal Automobile Club talk show in association with Motorsport Magazine.
Thank you.